Welcome to Module 3, Initiating the Process and Clarifying Mission and Mandates. To begin this module, we'll first cover the topic of why strategy is important. We'll then move on to step 1 in the strategy change cycle of Bryson, which is initiating the strategic planning process, often referred to as planning to plan. We'll then look at steps 2 and 3, clarifying mandates and the importance of mission. From the second Mintzberg article, titled The Strategy Concept 2, Another Look at Why Organizations Need Strategy, Mintzberg lays out several reasons for why strategy is needed within organizations. First, organizations may need strategy in order to set direction and outsmart their competitors. But strategy isn't just about seeing results. It's also about thinking those results through. So remember earlier, we identified 3 important dimensions of strategic management, which were strategic thinking, strategic learning, and strategic acting. Strategy is important for all of these dimensions. Strategy may also be needed to focus effort and to promote the coordination of activity. In the absence of strategy, an organization is merely a collection of individuals, each doing his or her own thing. Another reason that we often need strategy is to define our organizations and to give it meaning. Strategy allows interested parties, also known as stakeholders, an opportunity to know the business of our organizations without actually being in the business of our organizations. For example, we all know that Walmart has a strategy of providing low-cost goods and services. However, we may not know the full details of Walmart's corporate strategy. However, knowing that Walmart has this low-cost strategy of providing goods and services gives us an idea of what types of activities Walmart engages in. An organization without strategy is almost like an individual without a personality. It's unknown and unknowable. Strategy can also be needed to provide consistency for our organizations. Now, strategy is stable, but the process of strategy making is dynamic. Strategies reflect the results of organizational learning. And in this respect, strategy works for an organization much like instinct works for an animal. That is, it facilitates fast, almost automatic responses to known stimuli. To be efficient, at least in a stable environment, means to get on with things without the need to think them through each time. The major role of strategy, then, is that it resolves the big issues so that people can get on with the little details. In this sense, strategy is like theory, and really strategy is theory. Theory is simply a cognitive structure and filter to simplify and explain the world. A heuristic, if you will, a mental shortcut that allows people to solve problems and make judgments easily and quickly. But like every theory, strategy is merely a simplification that necessarily distorts reality. Strategies and theories are only representations of reality, that is, abstractions in the minds of people. As a result, every strategy will misrepresent and mistreat at least some stimuli. That is the price of having a good strategy. Good strategies, like good theories, simply minimize the amount of distortion. There are also a number of practical reasons why both public and nonprofit organizations need strategy. For nonprofit organizations in particular, many of these organizations are now required to undertake strategic planning by their funders, whether they be philanthropic organizations providing grants to the organization or government agencies providing the organization with contracts. Sarbanes-Oxley style reforms have also motivated many nonprofit organizations to begin focusing on strategy and engaging in strategic planning. Following corporate governance scandals in the early 2000s, Congress passed Sarbanes-Oxley. Sarbanes-Oxley placed new requirements on the governance of publicly traded for-profit organizations. Only two provisions of Sarbanes-Oxley actually apply to nonprofit organizations. One, nonprofit organizations had to have a policy for destruction of documents, and there also had to be protection for whistleblowers. Now, although only two requirements of the Act applied to nonprofit organizations, many nonprofits began to adopt elements of Sarbanes-Oxley after a series of nonprofit scandals. Now, today, many nonprofit organizations have voluntarily adopted these provisions to assure donors that they're operating with high integrity and sound governance. One of the provisions is implementation of a strategic plan. For government organizations, particularly at the federal level, many of these organizations are now engaging in strategic planning efforts and focusing on strategy because they are required to do so by law. In 1993, the Government Performance and Results Act was passed. One provision of this act was that government organizations must now engage in a strategic planning process. This process must include a comprehensive mission statement, description of the relationship between performance goals, general goals, and objectives of the agency, identification of key external factors that could affect achievement of the goals or objectives, a description of program evaluations used to establish or revise the goals and objectives, and a schedule of future program evaluations. The strategic plan also must be posted in a public space and open for public comment. Think back to Module 1. In Module 1, we likened strategic planning to a roadmap. Strategic planning helps an organization to know where it is going. Likewise, a roadmap helps us to know where we're going before we embark upon a trip. Our roadmap for this trip is going to be the Strategy Change Cycle by Bryson. The Strategy Change Cycle is an iterative approach to strategic planning. It does not progress linearly, and there are any number of places where it might be useful to revisit different issues. The Strategy Change Cycle is a strategic management process used to link planning and implementation and ensure that strategic managing is an ongoing process. The cycle consists of 10 steps, which we will detail throughout this course. In the last half of this class, after we get done going through the details of the 10-step strategy change cycle, we'll spend a bit of the last few modules looking at leadership and managing the strategic planning process. How does strategic planning begin? Before the process can really begin, a number of items have to be resolved by the organization's management first. Namely, who's going to lead the effort? Who's going to be involved? What will the process look like? An important distinction in the process is to recognize the difference between strategic planning, or the work that is being done, and strategic thinking, the actual creative, intuitive input. The first step in the strategy change cycle is to initiate the process. Essentially, this step is creating a plan to plan. Many of the understandings and commitments that are necessary to produce a good process and plan are developed here. and many of the critical questions regarding process design are answered at this time, such as whose plan will it be? What are the purposes and the process of the plan? What are the requirements for success? And how will the process be managed? The individuals who initiate the planning process must identify the top decision makers and stakeholders who should be involved in the process. Everyone involved in the process needs to be aware of the purpose of the initiatives, the steps that will be taken, the form and timing of reports and analyses, the role of everyone involved, the commitment and resources needed, and any limitations for the initiative. A committee dedicated to facilitating the strategic planning process should be formed. Steps 2 and 3 of the strategy change cycle include clarifying the mission and mandates. These steps are often grouped together. Mandates consist of the various informal and formal requirements, restrictions, expectations, and constraints that an organization faces. It is important to revisit mandates during strategic planning for 3 reasons. 1. If an organization does not know what they must do, they are unlikely to do it. 2. An organization may not be as tightly constrained by mandates as it believes it to be. And 3, stakeholders may assume that they are not allowed to do something when mandates, in fact, will allow it. At this time, we'll also want to make sure that our organization has an inspiring organizational mission. Both the organization's mandates and its mission help to justify the organization's reason for existing, and also it helps to guide the strategic planning process by pointing to the direction the agency wishes to go. Clarifying organizational mission and mandates allows various stakeholders to agree upon the basic purpose of the organization. At the above link, you'll find a short video clip about how to write a mission statement that doesn't suck.